Matas Buzelis continues to give Bulls fans reasons to be excited, but I'm going to tell you guys why we should temper our expectations just a little bit considering the situations that Buzelis would be stepping into in the NBA. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we finally have word from AK in regards to the Bulls' reshaping of the roster. We're going to talk about all that, plus dive a little bit into the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So, Matas Buzelis, we went live yesterday after the second Summer League game, and he was on full display. 28 points scored, 20 points of that coming in the second half of that game, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, but it was the way that it got done. And something a quote that I'm gonna keep using in regards to Summer League is that it's about the process, not necessarily the statistics at the end of the game, but both in this case were just really glaring for Matas Buzelis in a positive way. Just when you look at the fact of his basketball IQ, the hustle that he brings, how he gets out in transitions and moves without the ball. These are all things that could be very exciting on the Chicago Bulls roster next year, especially with the new point guard coming in Josh Giddey. And it's a really exciting brand of basketball. And Buzelis just is showing all that raw potential that he had, that people had him projected as being a top 5 pick in this draft. Buzelis has just as good of a chance of anyone to become a star, a very extreme high-level role player in the NBA. And while a lot of people are drawing Franz Wagner comparisons, I've even seen some people say Andre Kirilenko, and y'all going into y'all bag with that one. The biggest thing about it is just that it seems like the Bulls got them a player that has the mindset and the mentality that he's not going to back down, right? He's not going to go away. He's not going to be passive. He's going to be somebody who welcomes any and all opportunities and creates opportunities for himself by the way that he moves without the ball. Those are the things that I'm most excited about with Matas Buzelis. Yes, the blocks, the weak side blocks, he's still going to be able to do that, things like that. But he continues to just show a level of poise already and a level of activity and aggression that the Bulls are going to need on the offensive side of the ball, right? So that's really good to see. And I can definitely see Matas Buzelis carving out a role for himself. But we're going to talk about why to temper some of the talk that we're hearing a little bit, not because of Matas himself, but more so because of the situation that the Chicago Bulls are in with their roster and certain things on their construction. But throughout 2 games of Summer League so far, Matas Buzelis has flashed a little bit of everything that we want to see from him. The shot creation in the mid-range, the float game, right? The ability to get to the rim, to getting out in transition, even the three-point shot yesterday going 4 of 8 from the three-point line after going 0 for 2 in his first Summer League game from the three-point line. So a lot of those things are starting to show itself. The bigger question is how much of that can be in, again, how is he going to deal defensively with the physicality of the NBA, considering his slight frame? But it already looks like, if you look at Matas Buzelis from like the G League till now, it already looks like he's put on a little muscle. And that's the benefit of somebody who goes to the G League Ignite. You're working with the NBA level, dietitians and trainers and things like that. So it seems like Matas has put on a little bit of weight from the ending of his G League season, and I got to give him credit for that. But he's going to have to continue to add to that frame to really deal with that physicality at the NBA level. And the biggest thing, if I had any huge concern for Buzelis outside the three-point shooting, is, of course, how is he going to fare defensively at the NBA level next season when he does get minutes? But, that may be another reason why, when we talk about our next topic, why the Bulls may look to do some other things. But with that said, so this, of course, has gotten a lot of excitement for Bulls fans. And, us as Bulls fans, a franchise that hasn't had a whole lot to be excited about over the last few years, they look at Matas Buzelis and they're hoping for a lot from him. And listen, the hope for that, there's no problem with that, because I do think that that's coming. The bigger question is will it come? How quickly will it come? And that's where it is. Buzelis, the question that I have for him is, what will his role be next season? When you look at the Chicago Bulls, they're going to be, listen, I see some of y'all trying to get cute with lineups to try to make a lineup that you want to see. Let's not overthink this. The starting lineup is going to be Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic. That's going to be the starting lineup. I'm willing to bet unless something crazy happens, that's going to be the starting lineup. So with Zach LaVine returning to the Chicago Bulls more than likely, what does that leave Matas Buzelis' role at next season for the Chicago Bulls? And that is the biggest question that I personally have for the Bulls and for Buzelis next season. What is that role going to be? How many minutes are they going to get him? He's more than likely going to be coming off the bench. He's going to be playing a combination of the three, maybe some four against smaller lineups, things like that. But I think he's primarily going to be playing at the three. Zach LaVine's going to be playing at the three next season as well. And I know some of you guys are saying, well, start Lonzo. Listen, Lonzo Ball is not starting for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls didn't go out and trade for Josh Giddey to start Lonzo Ball in the last year of a contract after almost 3 years of being away from basketball. I get why the hope's there. I understand it. And I understand with how we remember Lonzo, him coming back in and being able to slide into that. But you're just not going to start a player that's been gone from basketball that long. On top of, hell, Patrick Williams only couldn't run and jump for 4 months and talked about how he needs to build strength back into that leg. You're not going to start a player who's more than likely not going to play back-to-backs, not going to be, be on the minutes restriction. So temper that. Like I said, y'all trying to get cute with lineups. It don't take all that. But with that said, we know what that lineup's going to be. And so that leaves Matas Buzelis coming off the bench more than likely with him, Ayo. Matas may even pass up Torrey Craig right away, depending on what he comes into training camp with. And that's more of a question on Billy Donovan, right? I don't doubt. We know what Matas is going to bring as far as his aggression level, his focus, things like that. But the question is now is that how many players can he pass up on the depth chart, and how much is Billy Donovan going to prioritize playing a young player like Matas Buzelis over a Torrey Craig, over a Dalen Terry, over a Julian Phillips, right? These are all guys that are going to be slated to get minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if Matas passes up Dalen Terry, not to knock on Dalen, but we just know Dalen has been extremely raw. He showed like a little bit more polish towards the end of last season, but he's still an extremely raw player. But that, I know some people want to throw Chris Duarte in there as well. We'll throw Chris Duarte at the guard in there. But there's that question. So Buzelis' role initially, if Zach LaVine is still on this roster, if the Bulls find a trade destination for LaVine between now and the start of the season, we'll completely revamp this topic, right? But with that, and already playing Zach LaVine at the three instead of the two where he usually is played at, it's going to put Matas in maybe a situation where it's best, right? And by this, I'll say that coming in with the Ayo Dosunmu potentially, or even if Josh Giddey's still in there, Buzelis is going to be able to focus just on the things that he does well. Meaning, you're not going to look for his shot creation at the three-point line a whole hell of a lot. If he can hit the open three, yeah, sure, take it. And he's not going to back down from taking it. But he's going to be able to come much like Ayo Dosunmu did initially in his start of his career before he eventually took over for injured Lonzo, is to come in and just play towards his strengths. And the Bulls need all those strengths. Energy offensively. Yeah, Julian Phillips can also bring some of that. So Julian's also going to have a place in this as well. But like the way that he moves without the ball is going to be hugely important for a Bulls team that didn't have much creation off ball. And so those are roles that you have to look at it for. But Buzelis is more than likely not going to get a whole lot of shots in his rookie year. He's going to get some. He's going to get more, of course, than the Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, but he's not going to get a whole lot of that. The question is how does he make the most out of those opportunities, at least to start the season? Now, I will say this. Billy Donovan also can't artificially limit Matas Buzelis if he shows that he's giving the Bulls the best opportunity and that he's ready for a higher role. And we'll see if Billy Donovan does that. There's always some doubt around Billy Donovan's ability to manage younger players. But that and Buzelis' defense are going to really determine how much he can be played next season. And, like I said, I want to temper the expectations. He's not going to have like a Larry Marketing rookie season where he's able to just come in, be a starter, go through those things, because this is still a team that's trying to still play winning basketball. And they still have enough players on there where they're going to win some games, right? So that's the thing to look at. Just temper those expectations a little bit, but there's more than enough reason to be excited about who and what Matas Buzelis is and what he can become even over just his first career. You saw the growth just from one Summer League game to another. And the mark of really good rookies that are going to have success in their rookie season to me is how do you progress within the week to week, game to game, month to month? How do you progress over the course of the NBA season from what you learn? And Matas has shown, even if you look at his G League production, he got better every single month of that G League season. If he can do that this rookie year as well, it's going to go a long way in kind of jump-starting this reshaping of this roster for the Chicago Bulls, this rebuild, and we'll see what we have in him. But overall, super excited about Matas Buzelis. Love the way that he's performed. And Bulls got him one. They got him one. I think they got him one in Matas Buzelis. But let's get into the next topic. This one, I want to talk about AK's comments on the reshaping of the roster. And this is the first time he's really kind of been public, since the draft. He did talk a little bit after the draft and a little bit after Alex Caruso trade via releases. But he said this: after the season, I kind of said about the changes coming. We were telling the truth. I think very specific players were targeting Giddey in free agency, adding certain guys like Jalen Smith and this year's draft picks. In terms of the youth movement, per se, as a word, I would say that we have a lot of experienced young guys that are moving in the right direction. And I think the changes that are happening right now are going to help us build for the future. That's the best way to do it. And it's still not a final product. There's going to be constant adjustments. Is that AK alluding to that they are not done willing and dealing? We'll love to see that. Like, they got to prove it. Last couple of trade deadlines, they've set out at being now a young rebuilding team. You would expect them to kind of survey that landscape at the trade deadline this year leading up to that to see what they can do. We already know that the Bulls do want to move Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. Reportedly, there's no market for either one of them right now, which it does suck, right? Because this is a situation of this front office's own making. But overall, like I do like that they did back up their words. And that is something that I said after that press conference. You talked about change. You now have set the expectation by your own words that you realize something needs to be changed, and they have changed it. And so I think that what comes down to it, he also talked about, kind of their mindset, saying this: I think 3 years ago when we came up with our plan, our formula that worked for a short period of time until we got into injury, the reactions the second year, and then obviously we waited a third year to see where we're at. Now we're kind of making those changes. You could argue with it's too late or early, but that's where we are right now. And that's something I've been saying as well. I get it. Looking at what the Bulls, I've done it. I've done a whole episode on it, right? Looking at what the Bulls could have had they acted earlier in that time, acted earlier at the trade deadline last year for DeMar DeRozan or whatever, or for Alex Caruso or for Andre Drummond. But they're making that change now. And that's the only thing that's what I have been judging them on. I also have looked back specifically and said, these are the things that you've missed out on by not choosing this change of direction earlier. But they are where they are now. And all they can do now is try to make it better from where they sit. And he also said this as far as why it took so long to change the direction, saying, we felt that we owed to that group to give them a chance to figure it out. And when we cannot figure it out, that's when it's up to us to have direction of the team and make changes. And that's what happened. And that is what happened. Like, they did give it a chance. And as I said, as a group that did look like they were going to be able to figure it out, to be number one team in the East, even though, like I always say, they wouldn't have stayed number one team in the East during that time. But that you want to give that group time. And initially, I do think that they had some serious thought that Lonzo Ball was going to come back that second year, and then it just never came to fruition. So, I can understand where he's coming from there, the human element, but you got to move and you got to pivot. And that's exactly what this front office has done, is pivoted. And AK talked about that as well with DeMar saying this: the pivot away from him, I would love if he was still a Chicago Bull, but right now, I think that doing right by the organization and letting him explore that opportunity to go elsewhere and try to win, we're not positioned well enough to bring him back. And two, trying to help him chase that dream of winning as well. And that's just what the Bulls did. We weren't in a position, something that I've been saying for a lot of the DeMar DeRozan disciples, which is something I'm going to call you guys, like over the course of the years when I've talked about moving on from DeMar, and it triggered some people, right, is the fact that it's not about DeMar being a bad player, because he's not. He's a very specific player, but he's not a bad player. But you have to ask yourself and reevaluate, can you truly make a serious move in the direction of playoffs, right, while DeMar DeRozan has this time limit? And the Bulls just couldn't. They couldn't. They weren't in that situation. And here's another thing that I'll give to you Lonzo Ball disciples as well. If the Bulls really thought, and Lonzo Ball was part of this huge plan to revamp this team, they would have, if they really thought that Lonzo was part of this Bulls team's future, not to say that he will or won't come back, but if they thought it was part of the long-term future, They probably would have kept DeMar DeRozan because they saw that's what they've been trying to get back to, is what this team looked like with Lonzo Ball. I think all these things point towards serious change has started with the Chicago Bulls, and that change is going to continue. And then he ended it by saying this: I'm very hard on myself. I do not run from my responsibility. I've always been accountable, and I know the responsibility is on me from where this program is going to go. I think all of us here, me, Mark, the rest of the group, we understand the results are not there, and it's on us to figure it out. But I think the changes we started to make and will make in the future are going to shape the future of this organization. They better damn well, AK. They better damn well shape this organization. Where we have been as a franchise has been a laughingstock. Where he has been as a franchise has been poverty-stricken. It's time that we are in a much better place this upcoming season, and let's hope that we really do bring that. I really hope that we do, and I hope that this works out. I've talked about and had episodes before on how with this rebuild, you need certain things to hit. You want Matas Buzelis to hit. That doesn't mean turn into a star. I'm not putting that expectation on him, but you need him to turn into a player that's a building block, somebody that you can build with. And Josh Giddey, you've kind of jump-started that because you have to look at extending him as soon as this offseason. All those things, yes, you've started it off, but you've also started it off with having to potentially give big money to one of the new pieces you just acquired. You better hope this works. And let's see if it does. Because if it doesn't, Bulls fans will be there to tell them about it. But all right, let's get into the voicemail bag, man. We got 2 voicemails I want to play before we leave today. This one's from Arthur.
What's the deal, Haize? R-Dub here. Just got done watching the first Summer League game, and a lot of people looking rusty. Julius Phillips had a really great showing, but the reason I'm calling is because I want to really ask you something about Adama Sanogo. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not a fan of the undersized big, but it seems like the undersized big is the only kind of big that Billy wants to play. So I want to ask you this about him, because you seem like a true believer in him. I want to know this. Do you believe that if he does get NBA minutes, that he'll be able to transition well when it comes to NBA speed? That's my only question about him. I don't watch him enough to know anything really about, how fast he can, get up and down the court. But do you believe he'll be able to transition to NBA speed quick enough if given minutes? Say about 5-8 minutes. Let me know what you think.
Will Sanogo be able to transition to the speed of the NBA? And this was my initial question when we signed Adama Sanogo as an undrafted rookie last year. But here's what I'll tell you. Seeing him switch out on the perimeter to guards, even here in G League and Summer League, I think that he can adapt to the speed of it, but he's not going to be a player that you want to switch a whole lot. Listen, we've seen players slower than him. Jokic is a slower player than Adama Sanogo. And I'm not comparing Sanogo to Jokic at all in their skill sets or caliber of players, but I'm just saying that it's about what you give and how you adapt to whatever limitations you have. And he seemed to adapt to them well, using his length, using his block shots. Now, Adama Sanogo is probably at the NBA level going to be a player that most likely thrives being in the paint. You want him to be in the paint as much as possible. But what he's shown over this year since the Bulls signed him is that he's adapted. Look at him. He's much leaner while still maintaining a lot of that mass, and you see that with his lateral quickness. I think that he can do enough. Again, I'm not saying that Adama Sanogo should be the starting level center or anything like that, but he has shown enough to me that I feel like he has deserved the opportunity to see what he can do. Here's the thing. He's better than G League competition. We got to see if he's good enough for NBA competition, because there is a chance that you can sit somewhere in the middle of that. There are players that are too good for the G League, but not necessarily good enough for the NBA. I'm not saying that I think Sanogo is that, but I am saying that he now deserves the chance to show that he can adapt to that level of play. He deserves an opportunity at the NBA level, in my opinion, and I do think the things that translate in this game are going to be so good. The rebounding, the block shots, right? Those type of things, thriving off putbacks, not needing offense necessarily called for him, being a high IQ player, especially on that defensive side of the ball. All these things I think will translate really well for Adama Sanogo, and I think he deserves that shot at NBA competition. You guys can let me know what you think down below on that one. All right, let's get into this last one. This one's from Corn.
What it don't do, King Drip. Hey, brother, let's get right into this, King. You're going to get a lot of calls about Matas Buzelis. So I'm going to be real short. Very, very, very impressive. Love what I'm seeing right now from the kid. being more efficient. That's going to come with time. I know it's summer league. I'm going to take it with a grain of salt, but not, because I really love what I saw from the kid, and he's bringing a lot of hope to us Bulls fans, man, to the Bulls Nation, man, and I love to see it, man. I love to see us happy. You know what I'm saying? I love it. I just love it. You know, that's just one thing I love to see is us happy, because we don't get that as much, right? So, Matas Buzelis, great. Now let's talk about it. Adama Sanogo, and the other kid, I want to talk about DJ Stewart. First, Adama Sanogo should not. You know what, King? This is funny, right? Because me and you don't agree on a lot of shit. We agreed a lot today. It's kind of weird. We agreed a lot. I have never agreed with you this much, and you had never been matched up with me this much as well. So it goes both ways. You know, we never have been in agreement like this when it comes to these kind of with players. You know, we kind of on the opposite side. But regardless of that, you are totally right. Adama Sanogo should not be in the summer league. He's too good. He should not go back to the fucking G League. He's too fucking good. He deserves to be in a rotation. I swear, if I had one fucking wish like Ray J did, if I had one motherfucking wish like Ray J did, that would get rid of Zach and Boots. So Sanogo, and I want P. Will to be P. Will. I understand. I just want all bets gone so I can have P. Will finally have no excuses to be fucking P. Will. But we're not talking about P. Will. We're going to talk about DJ Stewart. He should have the two-way contract. There was a subscriber there on the comment saying that my eye for basketball wasn't good. Well, what the fuck you talking about, sir? Did Henry Jarrell look good? Did Funk look good? Did Dumas? No. In these two games, he wasn't great offensively. He dribbled too much. But I will give DJ Stewart the two-way contract over those dudes. That's just me. And that's the other thing I agree with my guy, King Drip, on. Hey, man, we lost, but it was exciting. I love to see Buzelis. Can't wait to see more from all of them, man. Appreciate you as always, King. Love you. Bless.
Buzelis, I've said everything I need to say about Matas Buzelis. I completely agree with you there. I agree with what you're saying on Adama Sanogo as well. He's too good for the G League. We got to see if he's good enough and what level he's good enough to play at the NBA level, in my opinion. And then as far as DJ Stewart, listen, the first game, when you kind of waxing poetic about him, you said that he was the best player. And I know my brother Corn is very much a prisoner of the moment. He said that DJ Stewart was the best player on the court. He was tripping a little bit on that one, but you do see the things that DJ Stewart brings as a point guard, a defensive point guard that can also get other players involved. He does have tremendous upside, and I do think that he deserves a shot to work himself up through the G League. 22 years old, still young enough to where even if he spends two years in the G League crafting this game, he can still come out and carve a nice role for himself as a role player in the NBA initially. And we've seen that happen, right? We had a player on our team in Alex Caruso that had to do that. I'm not saying DJ Stewart can turn into Alex Caruso, but I am saying that he's a player that I think in what I've seen so far and just the defensive IQ and how he does have his head up to get other players, a true point guard, trying to get other players involved and not too shabby with shooting the ball as well. I would like to see DJ Stewart on this team more so than I would like to see like an Andrew Funk, for example. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Summer League, if he continues to play well through Summer League, he'll probably be on the preseason roster, on the training camp roster, unless another team gives him a two-way deal, and we'll see if he ends up earning it. But, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. That's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.